Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies, the live video podcast for people who are looking for a deeper conversation. That's right, a deeper conversation about the films we watch today. And today we got a banger for you. Another banger, another Oscar-nominated banger. That is Anatomy of a Fall. And let's, before we do that, though, I think it's time to introduce my co-host with the most, my Borscht bro, Mr. Jim Chaboyko. Whoopsie, let's get my script out. Let's get my script out of the way. How you doing, Jim?
Good. Look at the camera. Look at this. I gotta train myself. Good. If longtime viewers may notice something different on the wall when you do the wide shot.
Oh,
I over here.
What do we got?
Literally there, my autographed copy of The Shark is Broken playbill, autographed by Robert Shaw's son Ian.
Oh, when you were in
New York, Colin Donnell. I decided to take the 5 minutes, go to the dollar store and find a cheap frame and finally put the thing up before I lost it in the sock drawer. So
very cool.
Yep.
That is an excellent point. I want to put a bug in everyone's ear. I think Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies, we've only talked about it a number of times over the years. I think it's time, Jim, you and I, maybe do a deep dive on Jaws. Why don't we get that on our list?
Certainly,
all right, my friend. Now, before we get into the movie at hand, guess what? We had a great comment from one of our subscribers. Let's see, where are we here? On Past Lives. Hey, who's that guy with his mouth wide open? Here we are. Okay, Barb Perro 1084 said in response, I suspect in response to my take, she says, well, call me a romantic, but I quite enjoyed Past Lives and its theme of destiny versus choice. But it's about more than that. To me, it's about wanting, denying, sacrifice, and regret, the heart and the head. The pull that draws two people together again and again. The tightrope of emotional infidelity and not knowing who Nora would ultimately choose. I liked the pacing and appreciated the elegant storytelling. Especially refreshing was that all three characters refrained from saying or doing what they really wanted instead of just selfishly spewing or acting without thought of the consequences. Yeah, totally a masterclass in subtext. And she finishes it off with, perhaps that's just a nuance of the Canadian way. And if I had time, Jim, I would hashtag, if you know, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Barb, thank you so much for that well thought out, well written comment. I'm not 100% in her camp, but Jim, I was telling you in the digital green room before, I have way more appreciation for this film than even I did when we did the deep dive a couple of weeks ago. I broke it down. I did my own beat sheet on it. And by the end of it, I was way more sympathetic to Nora. And also, you're reminded of a couple of pieces, and this might be a bit of a spoiler, folks, but, you'll all live. But there is a moment early in the beginning of the film, what Michael Jamin would call the second beat, the tell the problem, where the mother says to the mother of Hai Sung, you know what, when you leave something behind, you gain something from where you're going. And I think that's where she's stuck on the whole film. And it is only at the end that she truly leaves the thing behind and gains something where she's going. And it's like, because you have that last scene where she's walking in one direction with someone and then walks in another direction with someone or to someone. And I'm like, damn it, this movie's getting me here.
Second time.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's but I didn't find it as irritating the second time around.
Mhm.
The character choices, I had a lot more, I don't know, sympathy for them or something. I don't know what it was. I just I gained an even deeper appreciation for Miss Song's uh, work. What about you? Is there anything you wanted to add or comment regarding Barb's comment there, Jim?
No, no, it's very very articulate. It's making me my stuttering feel a little self-conscious about that. I guess I liked it, kind of I'm thinking I have to watch our thing again just to make sure that I wasn't totally dopey about it. But yeah, I mean, I quite liked it myself. I thought you had different approach to it, but that's why we do the show. And yeah, no, but good points on her part. Yeah, I should go watch our thing and make sure that because I did like it. I mean,
Yeah,
there are aspects of it that are, it's kind of stuck in academia a little bit, the whole sort of book writing area, which can get a little claustrophobic, but I certainly wasn't like Richard Brody from the New Yorker, who was just like seemed to have dumped on it. I should say, often when you see something in a different light or even a little bit later, I remember years ago somebody spoiled The Sixth Sense for me before I had seen it because everybody had seen it except for me, and I knew the twist going into
smooth.
it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know. We had him over for dinner for it was a old friend of my wife's. We lived in Vancouver at the time. We had him over for dinner. He said, blah blah blah. Well, I guess anyway. He said the spoiler, and I went, oh great, I haven't seen it. I went to see it the next day, and even then, knowing what I knew, it made me appreciate the character of the young boy in a greater light because you're aware of his courageousness.
Yeah.
Is that he's like completely terrified the entire time, not just a little bit of the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, so anyway, yeah, often time and approaching it on a different day even will
Well, and I think,
maybe we should watch movies a couple times more often,
yeah. Well, and I think that one of, I think, the strengths of our show is we really are, in many respects, just a couple of film lovers, students of film, trying to
Mm,
figure out a movie.
mhm.
And so our takes may be less articulate than if we spent a couple of weeks and really broke it down and came back and
Yeah.
here is my thesis statement about X.
Mhm,
And but you got to start somewhere, and I think that's a strength of our show, and it gives opportunities, even like Barb, to be able to kind of go, hear what we're saying about it and go, yeah, that's not ringing true with me, and that wasn't my experience. And to be able to come back and sort of have a deeper appreciation of her own experience with the film, I think is a great thing about what we do. We are not the term paper about the film. We
Yeah.
really are the classroom after we just watched it.
Mhm, mhm.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I that doesn't mean, no, you're absolutely right. There are times when I'm like, oh, I think I was impressed with that film, and where was my head at?
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
yeah. I mean,
and vice versa.
mhm,
I'm not sure my opinion is going to change about this film, and that does bring me to this film.
mhm.
Jim, let's talk about Anatomy of a Fall, uh, both a Best Picture nominee and the star also a nominee for Best Actor, isn't she?
Mhm.
Memory
Yes,
serves.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Jim, why don't we start with you? Give us your see it or skip it. Jim, is Anatomy of a Fall a see it or a skip it for you?
It's absolutely a see it. It's spectacular in its unspectacularness. It's not Hollywood courtroom drama. It's not even TV courtroom drama. It's not really about the twist. It's about It's about the examination, I think, and it's
Okay,
very clear, very well acted, and very well done.
great. Uh, I'm for myself, Jim. Anatomy of a Fall is a skip it.
Oh, is
And
it?
I'm taking a hard skip it. One of the things I wrote early on in the film, in my notes, was like, wow, they're really a fan of the locked off shot, the observational point of view, but I think they went too far in it. And by the end, by the time we slipped into the second act, I'm like, I don't care about anybody. I am not engaged with any of these characters. And one of them is a blind child who's just been halfway orphaned. And I just didn't care. But yeah, that doesn't mean, as has been demonstrated about just what we talked about, that I may not change my mind. And
Yeah.
that means it is time to get into the spoiler zone. Jim, let me ask you this. What what did you think? What was your reaction when we first see the dead body, the husband's dead body? What were you thinking? What
Uh,
were you feeling?
I was surprised that it came. I mean, you know from the poster, it's I mean not a surprise that somebody dies. But and even
The
the
thing floating just over your
yeah,
left shoulder. Yeah.
the trailer as well is shows experiments and all that kind of thing, forensic people on the scene. I was kind of surprised that it came so early in the movie. There's not really sort of it's the first act, like it doesn't even lead in, it's not the end of the first act, it's like right there, first probably 10 or 15 minutes, if I'm unless I'm mistaken. But there's that, and because they didn't build it up in a traditional way, and there's I saw this 8 days ago, and I don't recall there being much of a soundtrack. So the soundtrack doesn't sort of build up any kind of spookiness. So there's not any. There's not. I mean, the most prominent song is has been the joke is the steel drum pimp song, which is apparently one of Mr. 50 Cent's
Yeah.
over.
Which
But
I gotta admit, like that first 5 minutes, I want to go up and bump someone off.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I'm not. And there I am once again, Rob Christensen laughing at his own jokes, which makes me think it's time to ask for everyone for a like, a subscribe, and ring a ding of that bell. We also have a couple of folks in the chat.
Hmm.
Mr. Matthew David Bowen and Jelly Duck 100. Great to see you, gents. I would love to ask you guys the same question I just asked Jim. If you've seen this film, what did you think when you first saw the dead body? Myself, Jim, I gotta admit, I'm like, okay, I think I'm supposed to go, oh, she must have bumped him off. But maybe it was just a fall.
Yeah.
After that, and I'll put it to you again,
Sure.
because I think there are some great questions being struggled with in this flick. At the end, do you now? What do you think? You've seen the movie throughout. Do you think she killed him?
I don't think so. I mean, the way that the prosecution sort of described it, it seemed impossible that they would have to be both shoving somebody down off balance over a railing while clubbing them with something. I just didn't see.
Yeah.
I just didn't see how the science was worked and it would work. And the prosecutor seemed so belligerently sure of himself that when anybody's that certain, it sort of makes me think that they're either faking it or pushing it, or they don't real. I just that sort of drew my attention as well. But yeah, no, I don't think she did it. Again, though, I'm not even sure that this movie is about the end as much, or and the fact that there's no twists. I mean, it's literally about the process, the examination. Anatomy of a Fall initially, I thought, is this movie even titled correctly? Shouldn't it be Anatomy of a Marriage? It actually embarrassingly took me about a day to realize that fall could have more than one meanings, one meaning. So
Well,
of course, I didn't think it
I
was
mean,
Anatomy of an Autumn, but
I
I thought it
think
would be
it's
like the fall of a marriage, the fall of a man.
falling out of love.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, I think the title was really carefully chosen. It
yeah,
does bring up not just those metaphors, but films like Anatomy of a Marriage,
mhm,
Anatomy of Murder,
yeah,
which has Anatomy of a Murder, if memory serves. The poster itself actually has like a chalk outline that's very similar to the image in this movie's poster,
yeah.
and
Mhm.
including my original thumbnail that was cribbed from YouTube that YouTube deemed inappropriate for our show, Jim.
I
Not
get you.
that
Yeah.
I'm complaining. I also want to. We have somebody else has joined us in the chat. Dragon Movie Guy, who
Oh,
is congratulating us on our fifth. Our 500th subscriber. Not
woo.
100% sure how that's going to last, but thank you very much. Let's, Jim, let us give ourselves an air horn. Oh, wait. I don't think I'm. Never mind. There we go.
Holla.
DMG, thank you very much,
Yeah, thanks,
and
Brian.
welcome to the chat.
Thank you, sir.
Let me continue though, and
Mm,
I think you're right. You alluded to it earlier in your answer. I, I do think that this is that one of the questions they're kind of examining here, Trieste is
mhm.
examining here is this idea of how do we ever really know?
Yeah.
You know, because we don't see even the fall. We see a little bit at the beginning, and we see and that's it. You know, and then it's just her story being picked apart by others, other
Mhm.
people applying a narrative to it, and then of course what might be one of the worst social workers ever going, well, you know, if you're not sure, just make it up.
Yeah.
To the little boy in a terrible bind going, well, let's see, if I say it this way, not only will I have lost my father, I won't see my mother for decades.
Yeah.
Nobody influenced the kid. But yeah, I think there is that question, and so I think that's one of the reasons it's sort of shot that way, is that remove that observer that they put
Mm,
us in. I just, and I keep coming back to this. It's like I should at least care a little about how this is playing out. Maybe, Jim, let me put this to you: if we spent a little more time with the boy early, because we never think the blind child
mhm.
is the perpetrator,
No.
if there's even a perpetrator.
Mhm.
Maybe if we were in his shoes more, if the movie was told from his perspective more or completely,
Yeah.
maybe I would have had more emotional skin in the game, you know, and more
Mhm.
interested in the questions. I don't know. What do you think? Talking out? Am I
I
talking out of
No,
my?
I mean, you have. I watched it with. It was family movie night, so my son wasn't here, but I watched it with my wife and my
No.
daughter, and we all like it. We started it fairly late, and it's a 2.5 hour movie, and my wife typically falls asleep a half an hour into everything we watch. So, but we all were sucked into it, and my daughter was kind of going whoa, on the couch and reacting to various scenes. So we were all, maybe it was that group thing. Sometimes if you watch a movie on your own, there may be an effect, but we were all totally, and I found it, and it's funny too. There's this isn't what's that, Harrison Ford finds the hammer at the end, like presumed innocent. There's none of that kind of like, oh, the court case is over and somebody goes up to the basement and finds a clue, and in the last 5 minutes. There's nothing like that.
No,
There's no
it's not a
there's
twist movie.
no, it's not
It's
about the ending even, because it's not, the ending isn't milked for that dramatic purposes. They just sort of announce on the news. You almost accidentally hear that, oh, she's been acquitted.
yeah,
So it's sort of about the journey, and it's very, I mean, as straightforward as any narrative can be. And it's just very cleanly told, and I don't think it takes the audience's intelligence for
yeah.
granted.
No,
But
and
we were
it
just,
doesn't.
yeah,
Like
we
I
were just
said,
totally
if
into it.
I just had a little more emotional skin in the game, it's a kind of cold intellectual examination.
Mm.
Um, like I don't
Snoop,
think
not even Snoop moved the needle for you there, the dog.
I didn't think the dog. I figured the dog would be okay.
Okay.
I'm thinking, why didn't the kid move the needle for me?
Yeah.
Again, lost his father. And the stakes for him are high.
Mhm.
And this is, I don't have a lot of criticisms of the filmmaking here.
Mhm.
I think the big criticism I have about that characters I don't care about is it's a fatal flaw of
Yeah.
this film. That said, that doesn't mean it's a poorly made movie that
No.
has no guts or anything. Trieste is taking a big swing even at this idea of narrative. We
Mhm.
all love, especially in crime stuff, I know what happened. The police love to know what happened. The prosecutor always presented, this is what happened. We know. And it's like, none of you
Mm.
know shit. You
Yeah.
know? And even I would agree with you. If I was betting on it, it's like, yeah, she didn't do it. I really kind of took at I didn't think she was faking it when she was uncomfortable up in that attic.
Mhm.
When she's showing her lawyer friend around.
Yeah.
I'd say, yeah, that's a woman who doesn't like going up there, and not because she's afraid of visiting the scene of the crime. It's I don't like it up here. It's creepy and I'm frightened of falling.
Yeah. Yeah.
But even her lying is like, well, it's a marriage. No marriage survives a certain amount of scrutiny, especially when the focus is on one area.
Mhm.
And I think this is one of the frustrating things about a film like this is it's like, wow, if I only cared about the characters, I'd be so much more into this because
Mhm.
I can see what she's trying to do. There's a story here and a deeper thing she's trying to say about stories
Mhm.
and about crime and punishment and that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I just wish I
Well,
cared about them a
you
little
know,
bit.
having said that, I was a little worried the first scene when she's interviewed by the student. I just thought it
That she's
just,
flirting with.
then you had the sort of the loud music and the I guess it's PIMP, not pimp, but anyway,
It's
the
pimp.
is it? I,
Well, if you read the lyrics,
I
like
don't know
I
from
think the
50 Cent.
PIMP is just to get past. I suspect they're like, oh, you know
Where does
what?
that?
We're gonna call it that because if we call it what it is, we'll never get on radio.
And what is a PIMP an acronym for? But that first
No,
scene.
you know what, Jim? Let's ask Luke.
Hey, Luke, how you doing? What does PIMP stand for?
Oh, wait, just a sec. Let me. What's that?
What's that, little Luke?
Jim, Luke says you know exactly what it stands
There,
for.
that's a good. Thanks. Uh,
You don't need the Force to know what 50 Cent is really talking about.
He just has to go to that den of iniquity and figure out.
Oh, DMG does ask if those are new holiday lights in the background.
Good, yeah, I just added them at Christmas, but
The
yeah,
flickering ones, I
yeah. Oh,
suspect.
they are flickering. Yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit on this.
Okay, back to this.
Sure.
What? Let me
Oh,
ask you this.
y-
I'm sure I'm in the minority about this, about my feeling of, it's just too cold for me to get into. Um, why do you think most people get into it anyway? What do you think your family got into it?
I think there's something to be said for when you're on a steady diet of maybe melodramas and sort of a lot of you see a lot of overacting, just in your day to day kind of viewing habits. When something comes across, even in as dire a situation as this, I think the performances, they're just so naturalistic. It's almost, yeah, it almost, I don't know. I felt totally sucked in by them. There's a great scene when Daniel the child addresses the court, and they're asking him a bunch of questions. He's like, the duality of man. Who knows what or something. He goes on to some thing about. I mean, which is sort of
Yeah.
sound like it was written, but I thought, well, if any 12-year-old child's going to sound like that, it's probably going to be a French child. I have the whole thing written down here. It's not as long as you think, but I just thought it was sort of very, yeah, I just kind of love that moment. That was sort of for this movie, that was the fireworks in the courtroom moment almost, aside from the little bickering that goes on. But I don't know. I think the performances were so naturalistic that Sandra Hüller is really having a year. And I believed every word she said, like in their arguments, in her in her expression of innocence, in her confusion, in her anger. Yeah, I thought it was a dynamite performance. And sometimes you watch performances and you sort of see the mechanics, right? You sort
Yeah.
of see, and we're not here to sort of judge acting too harshly or anything like that, but
Not
you
really
sort of
our
see
thing.
you sort of see the wheels turning from time to time. And I think the performances in this movie across the board were just captivating in how quiet and natural they were, including the guy who played Vincent Renzi, the lawyer, her lawyer,
Yeah.
the child, herself.
One of my
Yeah.
favorite lines early on. I don't believe it.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, they also say, I didn't kill him, he goes, yeah, that doesn't matter. Or
Yeah.
that's not the point.
Yeah. Nobody
That's not the
cares.
point of this exercise. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that's part of it. Another part is maybe the setting. Seeing something like I think if you sat down and you listed all the movies that have courtroom sections, you'd be surprised, because a lot of movies do. Whether they start out with that, whether they can be classified as a wholly courtroom drama, or not. There's a lot of them. We see a lot of them. We
Yeah.
watch a lot of them on TV. I
It's
don't.
dramatically, like, it does a lot of the heavy dramatic lifting, right? Like,
Well, it's like a sports
geez,
arena, right?
what side?
Yeah.
There are sides.
There's the gradual, even the unveiling of information.
Yeah.
It always drove me crazy. Like any law system seems to be story based. Like, oh, we all gather, then we get to tell you whether or not you're guilty.
Which I think is one of the
which is very
themes of this film.
and it's very ceremonial too.
Yeah.
Is that determination of guilt or innocence? In this
In
one,
a way,
though,
based on how good your narrative, how
Yeah.
well you tell
Yes,
the
yeah.
tale of the evidence you're highlighting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's like a rap battle. But the
And back to 50 Cent.
yes, exactly. But the other thing that's kind of cool is you get to see the very messy French legal system, where anybody can evidently talk to anybody at any time. It's not just a two-hander. Is that people can question each other, other witnesses. There's a lot of comments on Twitter like, I don't know how this works, but
Well, I mean, some of it is just that the judge the investigating judge. You know, I mean, it's all happening in Switzerland, but a lot of continental justice systems have that sort of Napoleonic, sure, there's this guy and sure, there's that guy, but the judges are just a lot more active in it. The very idea that that her lawyer friends, like, we have to prove, we've got to convince, you know, whereas in North America, you know, England would be like, well, they got to prove that. So we don't have to prove your innocence. We've got to make sure that their case is pointed out for the weak sauce it is. And I think that kind of thing maybe got lost in translation a bit for North American watchers.
Yeah.
Although, mind you, I'm acting like I'm a freaking expert. And I think I'm going off of some of this from what we were taught in high school, Jim. You know, when they're talking about the Quebec legal system.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So take that with a huge grain of salt.
As you will, yeah.
Jim, quickly, I do want to note we have someone else in the chat now. It's Richard L. also congratulating us on 500 subscribers. Thank you very much, Richard. Oh, let's get that in there, Jim. What was it?
Woohoo!
All right. Back to this flick, though. Back to the flick at hand. Where do you see it compared to, where would you put it compared to the other Oscar winners? I think we still only have 2 left. We do have to watch and analyze. Not sure we're going to make it. The 10th is only a couple weeks away.
Yeah.
That said,
and we got that stupid Dune movie coming up.
Which we already have tickets for. So guess what, folks? Next weekend.
I'm kidding. Actually, I'm looking forward to it. But
as am I.
Yeah. So where does this rank? I would.
Where would this rank for you?
I would put it pretty highly. Like I said, I bought it. I was fully sucked in. You know, the 2.5 hours went by really quickly. Didn't know how it would end. You know, and I appreciated the performances. I thought it was. I just thought it was a very clearly delivered movie. I think it knew what it wanted to do and did it. And you don't always get that. You sometimes get a muddle, and this just felt like a very, I guess, clear-headed movie to me.
Yeah, it certainly,
if that makes sense.
Unlike American Fiction, which in the end, I ended up coming, after I thought about it a bit, it goes, oh, this is not the good movie I thought it was. I was on a bit of a theater high, and now the next day I'm like, wait a second, this doesn't make any sense. Here, it's going to be very easy to beat out. It is a movie that knows what it wants to do, and it definitely stakes out let's say a position, a storytelling position. You know, it's, this is what we're going to show you. This is what we're not going to show you. There's everything is motivated. There is a choice behind it without it feeling too, directed.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to say that Trieste isn't an auteur, but and partly because I'm just not enough familiar with enough with her work, but there could be a lot of auteur flourishes in it, but her flourish then would be, I don't want to be seen in this. I want to show something in almost a documentary style.
Yeah.
You know, so that the audience isn't being necessarily manipulated. We're all being manipulated. Directors manipulate audiences. That's what we pay them for. But do you know what I'm trying to say there, Jim?
Yeah, absolutely. There's even, sort of, there was one camera shot that we all kind of laughed at was in the courtroom. There's like a super zoom on the judge, like as if somebody had just screwed up with the camera. They kept it in, but it was that sort of shot, almost like a 70 shot or like something that they'd probably do on purpose in the holdovers. But yeah, no, it's again. The award for best directing isn't for most directing. It's this is, you know, is what one reviewer
When you say
wrote.
zoom, do you mean like this?
Ooh.
What do you think, Luke? All right, enough of that nonsense. Yeah, is there anything else you wanted to add on this flick before we jump back to the chat?
Yeah, I've sort of noticed something, and it's kind of, I see, in two movies in the Oscar nominated movies. Of course, Killers of the Flower Moon and this one, where there are courtroom, at least in Killers, there's some there are some scenes that take place in a courtroom, but that and in this, the pin is pulled very slowly, or it's almost an anti-dramatic moment when the verdict is revealed. They're sort of revealed in Killers of the Flower Moon. It's revealed as part of a radio play, so you don't get that, as we discussed when we did the longer review. Is that, you know they decided to do something. Martin Scorsese decided to do something different with that. He took the air out of the, like, we find you guilty, or we find you innocent. He took the air out of that and opted to go in a different direction. This one,
we don't get the standard courtroom catharsis of,
yes,
will you read the verdict?
Yes, and in this one too, it leads. I think we're shown it either through television coverage or maybe just the press gathered on the steps of the courtroom, outside, and she's emerging triumphant down the stairs. And can you tell us how it feels to be acquitted? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so we're not given that kind of like that. I don't want to say money shot. That's such a gross term, but we're not. That eventually sort of does it.
The meaning of the term has changed. I think.
Yeah. Yes, I think so. But we're not given
great
that.
Way to hook in a porn reference, Jim.
Thank you.
Into what's otherwise a family.
Yeah, family death of a father movie.
Whoopsie. A family show here.
Yes. Yeah. No, but I think they take the air out of it a little bit, and so I'm sort of seeing a trend here. Is this what the cool directors are doing now? Is that they are including courtroom sequences in their movies, but they're not giving it the standard kind of pathway.
It's not. They're not courtroom movies.
Yeah.
It's not A Few Good Men.
Yes.
It's not a legal drama.
Mm-hmm.
And that, in a way, that kind of makes sense. The lawyers, although a part of it in this film, it's not what it's about. This isn't the heroic lawyer. If it was, you would end it in the courtroom.
Mm-hmm.
But it's about people affected by the court system, the ones the grist for the mill, and is the moment in the courtroom going to be the thing you as the accused remember? Are you going to remember oh my God, I get to leave this building. I am out here now a free woman. Period. I'm done with this. Like, that would be her, let's say, going through the balloon arch, would be leaving the building and going, see ya, balls.
Balloon arch. Can you heard of those? It would be so disappointing to return the balloon arch. Take it back. She was found guilty. Yeah, I mean, The Untouchables wasn't a courtroom drama either, but for the makers of that, the climax takes place in the courtroom. But yeah, I sort of see a trend. Well, to see a trend, I'd have to watch everything with a courtroom,
When did The
drama.
Untouchables come out, Jim? 19
Oh, yeah, but I'm just saying off the top of my head is that's one approach to it. But more recently, like, is this a trend? Like, is this something?
1987.
Yes, and Saturday Night Live had a whole skit dedicated to Forrest Gump last night, a 30-year-old movie. So I'm doubling down on the Untouchables. If they can make Forrest Gump jokes before half their audience even was born, then I can
Then
refer to
this
the Untouchables.
podcast host right here gets to bring up The Untouchables. Yeah. You know what? That is an interesting question.
Just something to watch
But,
out for. I
I'm
don't know that
wondering,
definitively, but I'm saying
when's
it's kind
the
of
last
interesting.
movie we've actually seen that had a courtroom in it?
Flashback that we've done together.
Well, I'm just
that
even
was
like a
once.
big courthouse movie,
Mm,
you know, in the last
yeah.
Are we seeing a trend in how courthouses are treated, or are we just kind of going, wow, that was in a courthouse and they didn't even we didn't
That's
we
been
we
played
went to
out,
the
perhaps.
fireworks factory and then we left or we cut out the
Yeah.
fireworks part. Yeah. I
Or,
don't know, Jim. It
you
is a
know,
good question. Let's quickly visit the chat, see if
Sure.
anyone is no, it's a lot of congratulatory messages about how wonderful you and I are, Jim. And you know what? I'm fine with
good.
that. Jim, I think that is, it's interesting because I do have some final thoughts. And I do think it is time for final thoughts. But why don't we let's go back to you first. What else would you like to add before we wrap this one up? Geez, coming in at oh my goodness, a tight 45 minutes for us.
Oh, already. Yeah, no, I just taking a quick look at my notes here, but I thought one of the more interesting. Well, first of all, I can't believe that Marge let the Daniel watch the panel shows about her discussing his mother. I'm like, what are you, crazy? The other thing is the
Yeah,
whole.
but isn't it the same one where the godmother's like, we should take him to a psychic?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Not the best judgment there, but the only well, the other thing that I thought was kind of or not the only thing, but one of the other aspects of the movie that I thought was interesting was the Daniel's little experiment with his dog when he decided to feed him aspirin to see if that's the way his father had attempted suicide before. And I thought, and it sort of went in a different direction than I thought it did. But I thought, is this kid a sociopath? And I, we were all just like, oh, I can't believe that, the dog looked like it was suffering. I know it probably wasn't, or I hope it wasn't, but that was a pretty harrowing little section. And it was nice that the kid was relieved, but it was kind of I was joking afterwards that Snoop and Daniel should be the next the next duo for True Detective. But anyway, that was sort of a harrowing bit, and I didn't know exactly what they were going for with that, so I thought that was kind of an interesting inclusion.
I liked it because it kind of brings home that the son doesn't know. And so he's like, he's looking, he's
and desperate,
trying to figure it out because he doesn't want his father's killer to go free, but he doesn't want to send his mother, an innocent woman, to jail. I loved it because that is the dark yet reasonable in its circumstances thing for a hero to do. It makes it more interesting because it is harrowing, and yet you know what? If you're a young boy, a blind boy faced with all this, you might be willing to, well, it's just aspirin. Sorry, Snoop. You've been a loyal friend. I
Yeah.
and loved it is too strong, but I was like, I respected that dramatic choice.
It was, yeah, it was very
Yeah.
interesting, and you know, it was sort of a relief to see that he was that he was experimenting, and absolutely totally desperate to
Yeah,
know. I mean, we knew he was not in a good place, but
yeah,
that sort of
and
hammered it home that
and
he
if I
would.
cared about the kid or even the dog as much as I should have, I would have been, wow, this is a great movie. I'm still not saying that. Um, you know what, Jen? For me, I do think this is an interesting movie. And while I think the characters not being sympathetic enough is a fatal flaw, uh, you know what? We talked about it in reference to past lives. Maybe a different day, I would have felt differently about it. That said, that doesn't mean that the filmmaker. I can still admire what the filmmaker did here.
Mm,
Um, a clear idea of what she wanted to accomplish, and a clear, like a vision that is followed through. Unlike other movies that we've talked about, which I've far more enjoyed, um, where I'm still pissed about the third act, you know.
yeah.
Or I think this still ranks above a movie that I gave a soft see it to, American Fiction, that I'm now like kind of, no, this is better than that.
Hmm.
Um, you know, is it Poor Things? No. No, it is not. Um, is it even you Killers of the Flower Moon?
About that level, yeah.
Depending on my day, I might put them at the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what, I got to admit, of all the ones though that we've seen so far, these Oscar nominated ones, I think this is middle pack or
Hmm.
bottom half. Poor Things for me right now, still like
Yeah.
far
Yeah.
and away.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say this is top third for me, but not. I'd say Poor Things is probably up there for
Yeah,
me as well.
but still top third for you though. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
On that note, folks, I will put a link here. I might even put a card before. Definitely will be in our end thing. I've compiled the 2024 Oscar nominations, like Best Picture nominations list of the stuff you and I have covered. And yeah, I think that's about it. I do want to say thank you so much, DMG, Dragon Movie Guy, Richard
Yeah.
L, Jelly Duck 100, and our friend Matthew Bowen from the land down under.
Perth. Yeah.
You guys
Australia.
rock. Thank you all for the 500 subscriber. Congratulations.